this piece that you wrote about HIV and AIDS epidemic, it's beautiful and it's a powerful piece of journalism. What possessed you to do it? Was it because of what we're possibly facing come November? Is it because of the challenges that's happening politically in this country?
It started with Beyonce. I'm not even joking. More specifically, it started with Beyonce's mom. So much of how this conversation about a health issue had been filtered through this prism of religion and morality. There are people that we don't know about who are quietly dying in the shadows because of shame, and we need to really stop doing that.
He actually put me on the cover when I came out in 2011. I mean, that is an icon. And it was the first time I really heard him open up about his HIV status. And so, I mean, it's happening.
I did not know.
Yeah, he said it on stage. He talked about medications and he did. I
didn't know.
And I love you for it. I love you for it.
Wow.
And I want to talk about it. You all right?
Yeah, we were just bullshitting and like going, that's an icon. That's, that's da 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 da. I had no idea.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Don Lemon Show. I am joined now by really an icon. He is an ESPN veteran. He's a political contributor for ABC News. He's an opinion columnist for the LA Times. And most of all, more importantly for me, he is my friend, Mr. LZ Granderson. How you doing, LZ?
Hey, Don. I'm great. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm great. I have like chill bumps doing this interview. Is this weird?
I can see it definitely being weird for you. I've had an opportunity to kind of process it for a long time, so it's a little less weird for me. So honestly, the simple fact that you want to even engage now is a blessing. I'm just honored to even have this conversation, however it unfolds.
Yes, so it's going to unfold the way that you and I talk in person. So here's the thing. LZ, LZ has some other interviews scheduled that will run before this one, but this is the first press you've done, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is
so LZ wrote a columnist on Pride Month, and it was a very personal column on Pride. And I feel terrible as a friend because he sent it. He said, this one really took it out of me, and I want you guys to see this. We're on a group chat with a couple of friends. It's three of us. And so life got ahead of me, and it took me a week or so to actually read what LZ had written. And when I read it, I started crying, and I immediately texted you. And tell everybody why. Do you mind?
Well, it's a piece essentially where I'm revealing that I'm HIV positive for the first time publicly. But before I actually get to that piece of information, I do a deep dive into the history of the heroism during the HIV/AIDS epidemic. I felt that it was important to do that because so often when we think about AIDS, we think about the trauma and we think about the loss. And because of that, we don't think about the people. We don't want to talk about the people, and we don't want to talk about the things that happened because it hurts so much. But as I was doing my research, I realized, there's a lot to be proud of. Obviously not the hurt and the loss, but how we fought and how we, won. And so I wanted to really kind of reshape that paradigm, reshape the way that we think about this time period in our culture. Because, when you are constantly hurt by a conversation, you avoid that conversation. And by proxy, you avoid the people that you lost. And I can't tell you, Don, how many people, particularly people in the sports industry, who have reached out to me and have talked about loved ones that died of HIV/AIDS, that they just don't talk about it anymore because of how that's all wrapped up in terms of the trauma and the shame and the hurt. And I decided to reveal my status in this piece because I thought it was doing a disservice to the women and men who fought in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s so that we could have the proper medications so that we could go on and live healthy and productive lives. So I'm a testament to their heroism, and I'm not going to allow the shame to deny them the credit that they deserve.
Were you hesitant about doing it? Like, did you, like, as my
Yeah.
mom would say, LZ, my mom would say, what possessed you? What possessed you to do it? I know you said it's because
You
you,
know?
it was this moment. Was it because of what we're possibly facing come November? Is it because of the challenges that's happening politically in this country? Is that what?
I'm going to say this, and there's a full backstory to it, but I'm going to say this because I know it's going to sound like a gay stereotype, and I really don't care. It started with Beyonce. I'm not even joking. More specifically, it started with Beyonce's mom. It started with Tina Knowles.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we're both members of NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, and last year, the conference was in Birmingham, Alabama. Historic place for the Black community, for the country, really. But not an easy place to get to and not a whole lot of fun stuff to do, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all in Alabama, for the conference, of course, and we're, very happy to be there. And I brought my son and all of that. That was his first NABJ, so it was really kind of cool. But Tina, Miss Knowles, flew in to talk to us about HIV/AIDS in the Black community. And I went to that conversation because I was just blown away that in the midst of this tour, and she's been popping up all on the gram, all over where B is, there's mom and, everyone in the Black community in particular, we're really happy to see this mother and daughter, travel the world together, living this dream. And that mom left that dream to come to Birmingham, Alabama, where a gathering of Black journalists were located, and said, please write about this virus. It's killing us still. And so when she said that, I was like, of course, and so I did. I wrote a piece. It's very, very detailed. It came straight off of that conference. And, I'm very proud to say it was nominated for a GLAAD Award. I was really proud of the piece, but I was also cognizant of the fact that I hadn't already gone all the way there as it pertained to that piece. So, it started at NABJ. It started with writing that column, and it just kept eating away at me because if Miss Knowles was willing to, sacrifice her time and use her platform to try to get us to use our platforms to help the Black community, to help the queer community, then, the very least I can do is meet her where she set the table at. And so when Kevin Rector and Kevin Merida from the LA Times, talked to me about being part of this big project that we were doing, about the century-long fight for queer equality. The first organization started in 1924. Obviously, it's 2024. You talked about November. Well, we're talking about all the Novembers between 1924 and 2024. And, my column was part of that. And that's when I decided to take that next step and to combine both coming out publicly at the behest of Ms. Knowles and trying to fight the good fight, but also, contributing to this incredible project that I'm very, very proud of that the Los Angeles Times team was able to put together.
You said it was, when I came out, I said there's a certain deception and silence. You thought it was a lie by omission, that you were you needed to step up and do something?
I didn't think it was a lie because actually it wasn't an onus for me to share it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I thought it was stopping me from getting to a deeper truth.
Mm.
And, I'm someone who is obsessive about facts. A lot of my columns, most of my columns, I try to get all of my columns to be based in some historical fact, and I take it all from there. And so I try to dig for the fact even within the truth within myself. And the truth is that I wasn't not sharing this information for anything other than shame. And so, for me to characterize writing about HIV/AIDS in terms of the Black community, in terms of gay Black men, and to not go take that next step and get past my own shame so that people may be able to look at the life I've been able to live and say, well, shit, if he's on ESPN, if he's on ABC, if he's, he's been able to live a very public life and he seems to be, thriving, then maybe this virus isn't as scary as I think it is, and I should take my medications, or I should at least get tested to see if I'm positive. So that's the reason why I did it. It wasn't necessarily, for people to look at me and my individual story, but rather to take the example of walking in the light. And the fact is that that darkness that surrounds HIV/AIDS, a lot of that came from a group of individuals who did not have any compassion for us. And so it's up for us to have compassion for ourselves, and that includes walking in that light.
How do you feel lighter now?
Oh man, you know what? I'm laughing because I'm not going, damn it, Beyonce, you did it again. So cozy hits different now. You know what I'm saying? When she says I'm comfortable in my skin, that shit hits different now. I was cozy before. I'm cozier now. I don't know if she can do a remix or not, but yeah, I'm lighter. I'm cozier. I'm way more comfortable in my skin. I can already tell a difference.
It's surprising to me because I'll let you finish that, but because LZ, you don't take prisoner. I mean, you have always like said it like it is. You've always been very outspoken. You've been out as a person, as a gay person. I mean, it's surprising that you can even be more comfortable in your skin as LZ Granderson. That's saying a lot.
So, as you know, I'm an introvert, right? So the public persona is someone who fights for those who can't fight for themselves. But the person who's not on air, or the person who's not writing, he struggles more in that space. And so to even get to the point in which, I would even think about inserting myself in a conversation of this scale, was a significant step forward for me on an interpersonal, level. So I hear what you're saying. I'll fight like for my people, for my communities, for democracy, for the things I know are true and to be fact. I hadn't always done that for myself, and I'm learning how to do that more. So when I say comfortable in my skin, it's not comfortable in the extrovert skin. I've long been comfortable in that skin, but being comfortable in the skin when the lights are out, that skin is what I'm talking about.
What is it like carrying that shame around? And this, look, it's coming from someone who, sort of knows what that is, carrying the shame of being gay and homosexuality and keeping a secret. But I want to know what that carrying that shame around was like for you all of these years. And Tim asked me, he said, how long? Tim is my husband. He said, how long did LZ know? Does he know, who, how he got it and all that? And I was like, he didn't talk about that, so I don't know.
I didn't think that pieces of information was information that was germane to the overall purpose of the essay, which is why I did it. Did it in that way, because there isn't a day that goes by that those questions don't haunt me, right? Who, when, why, and because those questions haunt me, shame has space in my life, right? Because I can't answer those questions, right? And as someone who's fact driven, as someone who is detail oriented, as we need to be as journalists, not being able to answer those questions about your own individual health is both perplexing and shameful in some way, or at least I interpret it as shameful in some way. And so, I like keeping that, part for myself because I'm still working through that part for myself. But the parts that I have solid footing on is letting people know that I'm no longer letting that doubt prevent me from living a healthier life. And I don't want that doubt to prevent other people from living a healthier life. So, the parts where I think about it most is like when, am I going to be around for my grandkids? The parts where I think about the least is, will I be around for, things of no consequence? So you live life differently, right? You prioritize differently. You could go to that one event one more time, or you could just look in your husband's eyes for the night and call it good. And so I've just been leaning more towards that latter because I'm healthy. I feel great. And I could walk out the door and there could be a mass shooting, right? I'm healthy. I feel great. Anything could happen. But when you hear you're positive, you're reminded that anything can happen. And so you just kind of recalibrate your priorities. And
Do you
that's a part of my process that I've been doing.
do you remember when you found out what that was like?
hmm It was scary. I was actually getting my hair done, and this is gonna sound really stupid, but I passed out. Um, and my salon, my therapist, not my salon therapist, she's basically my therapist. My stylist called 911. I wake up, I'm in an ambulance. They think I'm having a heart attack. Long story short, it's pericarditis, which was sort of like a virus had attacked the fluid that surrounds the outer membrane of your heart. And so it can be interpreted as a heart attack by some EKG readers, and that was happening with me. So I had like some brief exploratory surgery to see if I was actually having a heart attack. That ruled that out, and then began the battery of tests, and that's when I learned. Um, and my now husband, then boyfriend, was right there, and he didn't blink. Um, my son, who was in the room in the hospital when they thought I was having a heart attack, I did have him leave when we found out it wasn't a heart attack because I just wanted to be able to process whatever it was going to be because he was still young at the time. And I needed to make sure that, I was feeding him information that he needed to know at a time in which he needed to know it. FYI, he got this piece and thus the information on me being positive at around the same time you did. So that's how long I've been keeping it to myself. And my husband has been keeping it to himself, and he's just been my rock. So whenever things get uncomfortable for me mentally, it's never physical; it's always mental. When it comes to my status, it's always the questions that I mentioned earlier. He's my rock, and he reminds me that you know those questions don't matter. You know, because it's about today. And those questions reflect the past.
I didn't say why didn't you? I said you could have shared with me, but I understand why you didn't. And I'm just wondering if other people, I know that you're going to change things, and I know that you're probably going to make a difference when it comes to people and the stigma around this, and people actually, being more outwardly, or just more out with their status, right? Because it's not a shame, and this isn't a disease because God hates gay people, right? I mean, that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I wonder if if you caused other people to do what I did, because I shared an experience with you where I was afraid for a long time to get an HIV test, and when I got back and it was negative, I started crying, and I thought about all the people who got positive HIV tests, and I hadn't shared that experience. It's more personal than that, LZ, as you know.
Right.
I don't feel like necessary to share that, but you inspired me to share that story, which sort of took a lot the same weight as you, but just took that off of my shoulder. That for a long time I was nervous about that, and there are certain things that you do as a man of a certain age, when it comes to HIV and AIDS, that the younger folks don't even think about it, right?
Right.
The way that you
Right.
carry yourself, the memories of people who are dying, or your friends who have died, your loved ones who have died, your coworkers who have died. I remember coming to New York and seeing people carrying, the rollable IV stands, with the hospital gowns, walking down the street. You knew that they were AIDS patients. It's just not that way anymore. So I just thank you so much for doing this piece. I think it's fantastic that you are so transparent, and I don't know. I just don't know what else to say to you, because I just think you're freaking awesome. I can't believe that you did this. I really can't, LZ. I just can't.
I thank you, Don. I really do. And um, you know, the one thing that I was very clear on from the very beginning was that I didn't want to even pretend as if what I was doing was heroic in some way, because I was
It is, though.
standing on the shoulders of giants, as the saying goes, and a lot of giants. Many, many, many giants who didn't get a proper send off. So. Um, I
But
appreciate your kind
but
words.
people will say you didn't have to because because you're not detectable, right?
Right. You're right. I'm not
And you can't
detectable,
spread it.
and I can't spread it. I'm not, getting sick. I don't have any of the physical attributes of some of the earlier patients who had the AZTs, where the concentration of subcutaneous fat was located in the abdomen. I don't have that. So yeah, I guess you could say I could pass, and in some ways, I guess you could say I have been passing, but um, it's not like a uh, active sort of, trying to hold anything back. I mean, Don, you know this, being black in media, there's just not a lot of us. And, I've been in the national platforms now for, more than half my career.
Mm.
And I've been openly gay my entire career. So it's just been decades of, feeling like I couldn't make a mistake. Decades of knowing that I represent way more than myself, whether it was, being a black reporter in an all white area or being openly queer in a conservative one. I knew I represented more than just me, at all times. And so, um, I just gotten so accustomed to that responsibility that it never occurs to me to think of it anything other than my existence,
Yeah.
really.
What,
So to think of anything that I'm doing as heroic just never really factors into my thought process, because this is just the way that I felt like I've had to exist.
yeah. What I was trying to get out, and I could because the words escaped me, was just I was thinking about you know when I was a single person, like each potential partner was a potential. I'm not saying that could mean potential illness or even a death sentence, right?
Hmm.
I mean that's something that gay men carried around, even though heterosexuals, obviously straight people
Right.
get HIV and AIDS, but there was there's a certain stigma that goes along with it, and there was a certain reality for gay men that dating was not the same. Dating hit different for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, even before dating, just normal, crushes in school,
Yeah.
or crushes on celebrities, or, your favorite, singer, you know, things that, heterosexuals, I'm assuming, don't even have to think twice about. That if you like a certain singer, if you're a guy and you like this singer, then, that's just what it is, and no one's going to think twice. But if you
It was
are a
Tom
guy
Jones
in
for
the
me.
1970s and 80s, man, he was fine, right? Like, for
I remember
real.
as a kid,
Like,
I was
and
like, "Wow, damn!"
I didn't even know though. I
I
didn't
didn't know
know
what it
until The
was.
Voice. I didn't know till The Voice. So like, I wasn't really, checking for no Tom Jones, when I was going through, you know, but then when he was on The Voice, I was like, well, why is this dude on The Voice? Because all I remember was his top 40 hit Kiss that he remade from Prince. So I was already offended that this man had remade Prince. So I'm like, why is this man on The Voice? And so I did a deep dive, and I was like, oh shit, he was fine. Why didn't they say that? They should have just said that. Tom Jones is here. He was fine. And then I would have been cool. You forced me to do all this investigative reporting, but it's okay. I learned some shit. But it was just like, it was just a moment, right? But that's what I'm talking about. Like, you grow up and you don't have to worry about having a crush on Tom Jones
Yeah.
when you're a heterosexual girl. But if you're a guy and you say Tom Jones is sexy, that can get you in trouble, particularly, when at the time period we were growing up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't get to do any of that shit, much less date normally.
Right. You think well because there were other people like I remember Billy D. I was like, wow, he's good looking. But look, young girls could have crushes on the Beatles and scream, but and that's normal, right? Or even
Right.
young boys can have crushes on women or whatever, and it's normal. You write about
Yep.
this, and the reason I'm looking down is because I'm reading some of your piece. This piece that you wrote about HIV and AIDS epidemic. It's beautiful and it's a powerful piece of journalism. And then you write, no one was coming to save us, so we had to save ourselves. In doing so, we saved thousands of others. It is important to remember that part when reflecting on the epidemic. Trauma and loss do not tell the entire story. There were also heroes. And then you talk about those heroes of I guess if you want to call it the gay rights movement, and even the AIDS awareness movement. We're here, we're queer, get used to it crowd, right?
I mean, it's to me, it's somewhat sad that so much of how this conversation about a health issue had been filtered through this prism of religion and morality, right? If we strip it to its bare bones, HIV is a virus like COVID, right? It would be like politicizing COVID. Oh shit, we did. What happened? It was a disaster. So that's what happened during AIDS. We politicized AIDS. We filtered it through a morality lens instead of treating it like we would cancer or anything else, which is, it is a virus. That's the actual enemy. So, it's because we do that, Don, we don't acknowledge the heroism in fighting the true enemy. Because there's been this narrative set in place that the enemy are the people who were inflicted by the virus as opposed to the virus, or that the enemy was their sexual orientation or gender identity as opposed to the virus. The way that, the Reagan administration essentially allowed the Christian right to define, how the American public should treat this virus, and then it was treated with fear and hatred as opposed to compassion and patriotism. That's the reason why it was allowed to fester in the way that it did. And because of that, Don, the people who fought that festering don't get acknowledged for being the true heroes that they were. And that's the part that sickens me, is that we as queer people don't really ride or die for our queer ancestors the way we used to, because so many of them were lost during the AIDS epidemic, and AIDS is a conversation we don't like to talk about, but we're leaving those heroes' names behind too, and we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's not as they call in the business, not a sexy story, right? It's not
A sexy story.
Yeah,
right.
It's not. Yeah, people worry about the ratings, and you're going to depress people when you're talking about it. So let's give you some background and some context of where we're coming from. In 1981, more than half the country, 51%, supported quarantining AIDS patients in camp-like restrictions, while 15% wanted patients tattooed. By this point, more than 8,000 Americans had died. President Reagan was still avoiding the topic, and the White House spokesman was making jokes about people dying of AIDS in public. Now, this is a part of your piece that I want to read. You write, "It is not an overstatement to suggest that World War II may have turned out differently had Alan Turing not been able to crack the encrypted messages that enabled the Allies to defeat the Axis. What becomes of the civil rights movement if Bayard Rustin isn't there to mentor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the principles of nonviolence or organize the March on Washington?" Look, LZ, I got chills when reading that, because you talk about so many people who are members, our LGBTQ, our gay brothers and sisters who made a difference. You talk about Gabby Gifford and her assistant. And there are others that you mentioned who were gay men, specifically, you talk about, and how the world would be different without their contributions.
I enjoyed writing that part because I was looking for heroes to put together. And I wasn't looking for heroes, to represent anything other than, moments in U.S. history that we just assume, the narrative is through a heterosexual lens, right? All the heroes of 9/11 were straight. All the heroes of World War II were straight. All the heroes of the Civil Rights Movement were straight. That's the way we sort of interpret it, because that's the default, right? That's the default. And so I wanted to point out that we have always been there. And it was one of the reasons why, when I was writing a series of pieces, just sort of criticizing some of the humor of Dave Chappelle, whose overall humor I love, but you and I, we've talked about this as well.
Yeah.
It's just that
it's complicated.
It's complicated, but humor that characterizes us as not being there is just historically and factually inaccurate, and it perpetuates a stereotype about queer people of color in particular that's really is at the root of the reason why I wrote this piece to begin with. Because the first person that we know of who died of HIV/AIDS was a teenage black boy. And no one dies of HIV/AIDS, and no one's contracting HIV/AIDS today more than black men. And so to, have this black man continue to characterize our community as other than when we've always been here, ride or die, marching in the streets, bleeding in the streets, organizing right next to you this entire time, that sort of, gap there between historical fact and trying to make a joke, that's where people are dying. Because that's where homophobia comes in. And that's where shame festers. And that's where we're losing people we don't need to be losing today because we have all the medications that we have at our hands to keep a healthy life.
Your bravery is amazing. Is there anything else you want to say on this subject? Did I miss something on this subject?
Women, particularly black women, one of the fastest rising groups in contracting HIV/AIDS, Don. I believe 20% of all new HIV/AIDS patients in 2021 were women, 20%. So I know that I talk a lot about this through the prism of my blackness and my sexual orientation. But if you're a heterosexual woman, 20% of women are catching HIV/AIDS. So this is a conversation for you as well. And, I don't know if you remember, Don, that episode, there was a narrative of Girlfriends back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like
yeah.
They had like a 2 or 3 episode arc in terms of
yeah.
trying to get black women specifically to talk about and think about HIV/AIDS. And that was like 20 years ago. And fast forward 20 years and black women are still catching HIV/AIDS at a very, very high rate. And it's not because we aren't talking about it, but it's because of the shame. And so I'm hoping that, if people have, liked my work, seen me on television, watched ESPN or whatever it is, tennis, whatever, like if you think I'm cool, if you're down with how I approach life, well, I'm positive. And, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly cool. I'm still the same dude. It's just we need to normalize that, and you need to normalize that in our everyday circles because there are people that we don't know about who are quietly dying in the shadows because of shame. And we need to really stop doing that.
I hosted the Native Son Awards just last week, and it was the first time I'd heard, Emo Wilberkin, right? He's
mm-hmm.
founder
Yes, of course.
The Native Son, and was
that's an icon. Yeah, he was running Vibe magazine when Biggie was, you know what I'm saying? That's an icon.
As a gay man. And then he ran Essence.
Yes.
He ran a woman's magazine. He actually put me on the cover when I came out in 2011. I mean, that is an icon. And it was the first time I really heard him open up about his HIV status. And so, I mean, it's happening.
I did not know.
Yeah, he said it on stage. He talked about medications and yeah, he did.
I didn't know.
He did. And I love him for it. And I love you for it.
Wow.
And I want to talk about it. Yeah. You all right?
Yeah, we were just bullshitting and like going, that's an icon. That's, that's da. I had no idea, so yeah.
But we got you. And everybody, got you, we have him, we have everybody. And that's what we should do. And also, I want to say something too, because I know that you and I are similar in our position of having high-profile positions, especially in broadcast media, that put us in a different place than a lot of people because we're so visible, right? A lot of the criticism of us is rooted in racism. It's rooted in homophobia, right? And then also the stigma around HIV, whether you're HIV positive or not. And so, when I see people and they say things about, you're a fag, or I just did something on on social media, LZ, about the black church that Trump allegedly went to this past weekend.
In Detroit.
There are no black people in there. And this woman said, "Why are you counting?" And then people were like, "You go to church, you're a fag, or you're gay." And I'm like, that is not the insult that you think it is, calling me gay or a homo, because I am gay. I am a homosexual. So, okay, but I'm not that triggered. So you're not insulting me. You're just showing your own ignorance. Can you talk about that, please?
Well, it's just essentially about taking ownership of those words, right? And owning your own sort of agency. And the more we're able to remove the weaponization of those words or the weaponization of spaces like church, the more we can remove those, the less that they're able to, antagonize and control and influence legislation. Like, I don't want to say I don't care about slurs because I do care about slurs. I do know that they accumulate. I do believe in microaggressions over time. I believe in all of that, but I'm more focused on legislation in the judicial system. Who's
That's
being
right.
appointed? Who's being appointed to the benches? Who's being, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who's being appointed to which committees, like health, who are going to be, you know, whether or not certain votes get to the chamber or not is going to be dictated by a handful of a subcommittee. Who's going to be on those subcommittees and what are their ideas when it comes to HIV/AIDS in the queer community? Like, those are the things I'm much more obsessed with. So, the people on social who try to like get at me or get at you or get at us, with their tweets or whatever, or X's or whatever the hell we're calling them now. Um, you know, those,
I like to
those
call them
things, I don't know
excretions
what
or extortions.
So right, however characterizing them, they definitely need to be addressed, but they should never ever overtake the importance of what's happening on our benches, and what's happening in our chambers on the state level, on the federal level, and even on the city level.
Well, that's why I get so it really just it's galling when I think about people and they say, oh, I like this person because there's a personality and they're spicy, or I don't like this person. I'm talking about politicians because they're
Right?
too old or they're not inspiring. I don't need my politicians to inspire me. I need them to do what is going to be good for me. And so that's what's important in November is whether the person or the administration or whoever it is that it's involved in that particular political group that's going to help you as a person and help secure your rights as an American. That's what's more important, not whether someone is 81 or 78. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, man, there will always be a group of voters, a group of the electorate that will want to run their candidates through some sort of purity test.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's certainly their prerogative. There are voters who are single issue voters, right? Like, they don't care what this person has to say about anything else as long as they're against this, or as long as they're for this. And you're always going to have those voters, and I don't obsess over those voters because those are the ones who are immovable. But the ones who are obsessing, or the ones who are assessing everything, the movable middle, if you will, those are the ones that I try to write to. Those are the ones that I try to, do television commentary to. Those ears, the ones who, may be, someone that you don't think we have anything in common, but because I'm speaking about humanity first, as opposed to, isolated issues, I think that just makes the dialogue overall much more engaging, and hopefully people will make a decision in November that leans towards more dialogue and compassion for one another, and less hatred and spite and grief and grievances with one another.
I wish you guys could see our text exchanges, LZ, and even our conversations. Sometimes we vehemently disagree with each other. Do you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
absolutely.
And we go
Absolutely.
back and forth. I'm like, no, LZ,
Because
this is why you're wrong. And you're like, okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, but let me tell you
I,
why your ass is wrong.
I remember I died on this hill too. I'm so embarrassed. I died on this hill. When Weekend and Madonna came out with Popular, and I went on and on in the group chat. I was like, "Oh, Popular! This is banging. I love this song." And y'all was like, "No, boo, this is not it. No, this ain't it." I was like, "Y'all wrong. She's popular. Y'all don't know this is pop." And then like 2 weeks later, nobody was playing it anymore, and I was like,
Madonna fans, don't get us wrong. Madonna is a legend. And we love
"Damn."
Madonna. So
Yes,
Madonna, just be a
yes.
legend. Like, she's trying too hard. You know what I'm
Just,
saying?
you,
Just
you,
be a
you
legend. We
know,
love you. We're not
I
saying get
don't
off the
know.
stage. I'm just saying, just
No,
be
God, no.
Madonna. No, not at all.
I think from the outside looking in, because I've never met her, but she's been very influential in my life through her art.
Amazing.
Amazing, amazing, artist. And I mean, from junior high on, I've seen her, I don't know, 10, 15 times, whatever.
Yeah.
I love Madonna. The thing that I am wrestling with is that she doesn't seem like she's comfortable in her own skin anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, it always felt, even when she fell flat on certain film projects, that she went into it comfortable. She doesn't seem comfortable anymore. And I don't know where that comes from, but it's sad to me because we love her, and you don't have to be 80s or 90s or 2000s. You don't have to be edgy. You don't have to be anything other than just Madonna.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. So
I mean,
this is not Madonna shade. We're not shading Madonna. Madonna has reached a point where she does not have to try so hard. She doesn't need the grill. She doesn't need the butt implants. She doesn't need any of that stuff. She just needs to stand on the stage and be Madonna, and we will applaud her and say, we love you and thank you for what you did for us.
But can I tell you something though? It's different for women though,
right?
And we have to acknowledge that. It's People magazine putting senior citizens on the cover. It's about sexiest man alive. Right. They ain't doing that for no women. So
that's true. You're right. So
it's not. I think both are true.
Yeah.
I think there is space for her to own that a little bit more than I think than what we're seeing. Again, this is on the outside looking in. But then as a culture, we're trying to create space for who we really are, but it's butting against the commercializing of who we obsess to be like, right? Mm-hmm. So now what the latest pill is like, Ozempic or whatever the heck it is, but it's like, it just always seems to always be, and I'm not talking about for people who are using the pills for health reasons, but I'm talking about for those who are using it for vanity reasons because there's 10 pounds to try to get rid of before they head to a beach somewhere. I'm like, there's always reasons why we can try to beautify ourselves, and there's an industry behind it, and that makes it hard, right, to just be ourselves because everything around us is saying, no, be this.
It reminds me of, I'll just put it this way. When I go to a concert or when I put on the music of a legend, I want to hear the hits. Do you know what I'm saying? And so even if I think she should continue to make music and everybody else should do whatever, but damn, what a catalog she has. Even if she just sang the old stuff, we're like, wow, yeah, Madonna.
But here's the thing though. When you have that kind of career though, the old stuff is defined differently. Right. I mean, she's got a 40-year arc. So, old stuff for us might be vogue, but that might be the new stuff for a generation that's older than us, right? So it's like, I mean, to me, that's kind of dope. And Beyonce's dope like that too.
Yeah.
Low key. Beyonce was out when I was in graduate school with Destiny's Child. I was in grad school when No came out. I was just at her show last summer.
And you still want to hear the classics. I'm just saying.
But you know what? But you know what's funny though? Like the new stuff was great, and I did want to hear the classics. But then I left a 3-hour show, and I don't think I heard Halo. Because it's just so much. So when it's a waterfall of hits, man.
I'm not. Look,
you just gonna get wet just by being there.
I'm not leaving without no. I'm not leaving the concert without that. I'm not leaving the concert without all the single ladies. Oh,
I didn't hear single ladies.
I'm good if I hear that.
I didn't hear single ladies. I like it when an artist grows and they let previous versions of themselves go I like that. I don't like Madonna calling herself a girl all the time. Be a grown-ass woman. I love when MJB says she's a grown-ass woman and continues to say she's a grown-ass woman. Be a grown-ass woman. Don't be a party girl. Be the grown-ass woman who throws the party. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's what I want to see from Madonna now.
Yeah. Now, look, Whitney's not even here. And every time I hear a Whitney song, and we're still praising Whitney, you know what I'm saying? Because that talent is just beyond. Okay, let's get off. We're not on Madonna's neck. Again, Madonna, we love you. We're just conversating, as they say.
No. I think I got Madonna lyrics tattooed on my arm. My arm is full of show tunes and pop tune lyrics.
Madonna, you're a legend and an icon, and especially a gay icon, and we love you. So let's move on and talk about someone who may have the potential to become an icon. I want to talk what your real specialty is, and that's sports, right? You have a lot of specialties, but sports is one of them, I should say. So let's talk about Caitlin Clark's success and the possibility of her possibly becoming a legend. And you said Caitlin Clark's success has been dividing fans beyond the court. You called Clark an outlier that could be bringing the wrong folks to the WNBA for the wrong reasons. What do you mean by that, LZ?
Is that a direct quote? I don't remember
He
writing
said it's an
that.
outlier. An outlier. That's not a direct
Yeah,
quote.
yeah, yeah.
Outlier is a quote. So maybe I got the wrong
Okay.
reasons.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I was saying that there's a certain swath of people that needs her to be this magical sort of unicorn that gets them interested in this league, because then they don't have to think about why weren't they watching that league before. And I put that out on X, just sort of like to try to way to kind of reframe the way we're talking about her without actually talking about her, because it's not about her at the end of the day. It's really about the reaction to her and what people are witnessing. And there's just a lot of people, particularly white men, who aren't used to seeing white women get hit by black women. And Caitlyn is getting hit driving to the paint by black sisters, and they don't like it. I mean, I'm just going to be, and so it's uncomfortable for them. But if you actually are a fan of the sport, everyone gets hit in the paint. And that is not, anyone's targeting her because she's white or because she's presumed heterosexual, that she's pretty. Is they're targeting her because she's in the paint and she's the number one overall draft pick. And if you don't get up on her, she's going to get buckets. And she's getting treated with the respect that any other athlete in any other league would get. When the best player is on the court, the first thing you try to do is intimidate them physically. When that doesn't work, you try to work with them mentally. When that doesn't work, you try to become a teammate. That's just what happens. and so I'm like, people are freaking out over Caitlin Clark like she's a damsel in distress. It's like, no. She's a number one draft pick. She scored more buckets in college than anyone in the history of the game. And so people are giving her the respect, and they also putting her through the rookie treatment like every other superstar rookie gets.
Yeah. Look, so are you saying, I mean, is this a version of White Lady Tears?
This is a version of missing white women syndrome, I would say, where, everyone agrees that missing women is a tragedy, right? And it needs to be covered. But the science has shown, the data shows that the media covers missing white women significantly more, or used to, since we started pointing that out. But the coverage of missing white women was significantly higher than that of missing black women, even though everyone agrees that missing women in general is a bad thing. Now, you do that with basketball. Everyone loves basketball, right? Yeah, it's a great sport, blah, 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 blah. But some people will gravitate towards the sport more if it looks more like Friends than living single.
So can I ask you a question? So what is that guy's name? I forget his name. He has a sports show, and he called Caitlin Clark a bitch. Did you hear about that?
Does he still have a sports show?
There's something saying there was a white bitch problem. It's not Portnoy. It's one of those.
The guy with the tank top.
Yes, that guy.
What is his name? Hold on.
It's not. It starts with a P, I think. But anyway,
Pat McAfee.
Yeah,
Sorry.
McAfee.
Sorry. Wow.
Why nothing happened? I'm not saying the guy should lose his job, but I mean, how could he get away with that?
Listen, man. I try to stay in my own business. If I start getting caught up in,
I was just
how the industry works.
When you were talking about the black ladies, hitting the white lady on the court, and then I would just imagine if even Stephen A., who is, bombastic and hyperbolic and always in other people's business for no reason, I don't know if he could have even gotten away with saying that.
I mean, he's gotten away with saying, I think, things that are on par. The language may not have necessarily been the same as inflammatory, but the intent has been on par in my estimation. But that's neither here nor there. A lot of men are struggling or recovering this story because a lot of men don't really pay attention to women, period. And it just is what it is. I'm not trying to, put myself in any sort of high horse or anything like that, but I've written stories for the WNBA for a long time. I wrote Cheryl Swoop's coming out story, way back in the day when she was still balling. That's how long ago I've been writing about this league. And so I've been going to games.
How
I've
do you
gone
say
on
you're seasoned
dates.
without being seasoned?
Listen, listen, listen. I've taken dudes on dates at WNBA games. Like I'm just very comfortable in that space and have been for a long time. And so from the outside looking in, watching people that I know don't know what the hell they're talking about this sport, and then because they found someone that they like, they want to position her somewhere in the sport that she hasn't earned yet. And it's like, don't act as if, you're all of a sudden now a great advocate for women's sports when you really hadn't been talking about women's sports until Caitlin Clark showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you got receipts, then, pontificate away. But if it wasn't until she showed up in a major way 2 seasons ago that you got interested, then maybe you should sit back and learn some shit first before you insert yourself or parachute yourself into this conversation and start dictating about what's fair, what isn't fair, and who's being targeted and who's not being targeted, or what's usual and what's unusual.
This is what
Because I've seen players, I just want to say real quick, I've seen players get clotheslined and not get a foul call, before Caitlin Clark. So it's not like this league hasn't always been physical. It's always been physical.
Well, I tried to make that point about the attention that people were paying to the league, and got me in trouble. Somehow it was misconstrued. But this is what you tweet. You said, and I think you're saying similar things. You said golf and tennis were intentionally segregated. That is what partly made their success unique. The WNBA was built on diversity. The difference now, the new eyes trying to save Clark from a league they don't know. That's what you said.
Yeah, I mean, people are trying to, the social media, atmosphere. People are trying to make the comparisons with, Serena Williams in tennis, Tiger Woods with golf, and say this is like with Caitlin Clark. She's bringing these kind of new eyeballs based on these same reasons, and it's like that is absolutely false. And I simply won't sit here and let you try to rewrite history, because you literally kept black people out of tennis and out of golf, like in your bylaws. Like it was a literal segregated sport. And so part of the intrigue wasn't just that they were outstanding players, both Serena and Tiger were GOATs in their sports, but also that they were GOATs in the face of your oppression. Don't forget that part. There was no oppression in the WNBA. There was only an open arm. So it's like this idea that, Caitlin Clark is like a Serena Williams. It's not apples to apples, because Caitlin Clark is being welcome. Excuse me. Caitlin Clark has always been welcome. Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Lauren Jackson. I mean, there are so many white superstars. Elena Delle Donne. There have been so many white superstars because the league was diverse to begin with. It wasn't like golf and tennis, which was segregated. And comparing those two athletes on that premise is just false.
Wow. And thank you for that. These same dynamics, though, exist in the men's league, and people applaud them, and that's the reason they watch. And then all of a sudden it's the women's league, and people are upset. Why is she getting hit so hard? Why are they talking trash? Isn't that part of contact sports? Isn't that the deal?
The NFL has new rules on where you can hit people, and former players and fans are saying the league is getting soft.
Yeah.
The NBA has rules of how you can hit people, what's considered a foul, where you can do hip checks anymore, and fans and former players are saying the league is soft. You turn on the WNBA, sister drives to the paint, she loses her head, my bad, and people are losing their minds. It's like, let's be honest about it. Gender is part of the reason why people are freaking out watching Caitlin Clark get hit in the paint, because she was their princess, their damsel that they loved, that they discovered, and they were like, yeah, this is awesome. And she goes to this league that's, way more diverse than perhaps they thought they were prepared for. And she's being treated like a player in the league and not being treated like this story that they had in college. Because in the league, these are grown-ass women trying to pay bills. They don't care about your Disney story or your fandom. What they're trying to do is win championships and get new contracts. And it's like, that's what every league does. Take JJ Redick, for instance, Don. JJ Redick was a superstar in college. Shot the ball just like the way Caitlin Clark is shooting it now. Half court, jumpers all over the place. He was everywhere. Him and Adam Morrison. Everywhere. Then they went to the NBA. And the level was different. The caliber of athleticism was different. Your opportunities are different. What's expected of you is different. And so they had to adjust in order to thrive in the league. Every major athlete goes through that. Some athletes go through that and they're still able to achieve great heights, like a Carmelo Anthony. Superstar in college, was able to be a superstar in the pros, win a bunch of gold medals, etc. And some, like JJ Redick, superstar in college, very good career, long good career in the NBA, but not the same level of stardom. I don't know what Caitlin Clark is going to be. No one does. But what she's not is a damsel in distress. She's going to have to go through the fire like everybody else. And I'm pulling for her because I do think she's a great player. And I do like the way she plays. But if she can't play in this league at this level, she can't play in this league at this level. It's up to her to prove it. You can't protect her by tweeting.
I think they're actually
trying to pass.
I think they're actually hurting her.
You know what they're doing? It's, to me, and I can't speak for her, obviously, but to me, it's almost like an insult.
Yes.
Like this idea that I need everyone to rally around and help me, like she's Rudy or something, and she's trying to make Notre Dame's football team. That's not it. She's a number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, but
she's not an underdog.
When people do that, it usually comes back to hurt the person, is what I'm saying, that they're doing it to. Because even that happens in the business that we're in, when they move people too fast and they try to coddle them and say, this person is the future. And you're like, well, you don't know that they're the future until they actually have earned their stripes, right? It's not, you can say, well, I identify this person and we want to move them along. No, usually it ends up, and then the person usually doesn't perform, right? Because you have to naturally let the fans of the NBA and the audience and the stats and the game has to decide who is the future.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some things that are out in the zeitgeist, okay? So we were talking yesterday, and you told us about it. People are pissed at Jay-Z. They're like, why is Jay-Z performing at Tom Brady's? What was he inducted into some Hall of Fame?
The Patriots Hall of Fame.
Patriots Hall of Fame, and not at the hip hop anniversary. And people are pissed. They feel a certain kind of way on social media. I don't, one way or the other. I don't know. I was just like, okay, that's interesting. And you say it's business.
It's business. Jay has a relationship with the NFL, a relationship that I think, a lot of us will say, the community and the culture as a whole has benefited from. I was in LA for the hip hop halftime act, and it energized, and we felt seen. And I think Jay helped bring some of that texture that was missing to that aspect of the game. That doesn't squash what happened with Kaepernick at all. And I think a lot of people still feel funky about what happened with Kaepernick. And I'm one of those people who still feels funky about what happened with Kaepernick. Yeah. I'm not okay with it still, but we do a lot of things in life we're not okay with, but we continue to find a way to move on. Kaepernick's moved on. The NFL has moved on. So I think people need to, not forget what happened, remember what happened. But if the NFL ratings are still as high as they are, and the Super Bowl ratings are still high as they are, that means people aren't sweating the way you think they're sweating it. So maybe just give grace to Jay and let him do his thing. Tom Brady is a GOAT. And as far as I remember, I think he's one of the owners of the Las Vegas Aces WNBA team. So, Tom may have represented something that a lot of people don't like, whether it's his constant winning, whether it's the team or the smugglers, however you don't like Tom Brady, whatever. Jay made a decision, it was a business decision to be in that community because Tom still moves the needle. You saw that at the roast. He moves the needle for a lot of people. So there's nothing wrong in my view with Jay doing that. Would I want to see him do some hip hop shows? Of course. Of course. He helped build it. Of course. But Jay's going to do what Jay's going to do. And he's found a way to navigate these waters for a long time. He's been very successful doing it. So I'm not going to question a man who's been successful doing what he's been doing.
I had so much to talk to you about because I'm going to talk to you about it, weekly on the TV like we used to. What did you think of the Brady roast and the jokes? And
I don't know why he did it. I'll be honest with you. I get the political math, because he's won so much, and people don't know his personality because much of what they know is his face was in a helmet, and then gets divorced. So it's an opportunity to make him look human, right? And what's the best way to look human? By laughing at yourself. Um, but that was nasty, man.
I don't know if that helped him look
I,
human.
I don't know if that, man, I don't know, dog. I don't know. I don't know what the math on that one. I can understand trying to make yourself look appear human. Um, I thought you did that with the dad bod photos that you were posting and stuff. That made you look human enough. I don't think you needed to do that, but you did, and we laughed, and we're gonna move on. But we'll remember those jokes, man. We'll remember those jokes.
Yeah, and the Kim Kardashian boo thing, I was just like, ooh. Some of it was like they went in hard. They went in hard, and
Nah, man.
I can't.
That was in the contract. That was in the contract. When you signed the letter to do X, Y, and Z for fame and success, that's in the contract, man. Just is what it is.
So you think she should have just taken it? Because I think they removed it. I don't know if she asked them to, but you think they should have left it in of them booing her for that? I watched the live version of it, or before they removed that, and I'm not sure if they removed other things, but it was raw. Do you think that they should just leave it there? Should have left it in?
I mean, she was with her peers, right? I mean, who's in that room? Who's in that space?
Yeah.
They didn't just let okey dokes in. I saw a whole bunch of celebrities. See like mommy and daddy are fighting, or like a Hollywood conversation. I'm just saying, when you sign that contract, that social contract to monetize yourself in that way, that is one of the reactions. We were talking about Madonna earlier. Madonna used to do the same thing. She got similar reactions.
Yeah.
That's the math.
Speaking of okey doke, you said okey doke. When I said don't fall for the okey doke, I think you know where I'm going. Byron Donalds, you recently wrote a piece on Byron Donalds, specifically about Black Americans saying that they were better under Jim Crow than they are under Joe Biden. What was your reaction to that remark when he said that? Because he's trying to walk it back, saying it's been taken out of context.
Well, he was trying to say that the Black family was together during Jim Crow. And after LBJ's, war and poverty began, that's when the Black family started to crumble, because some of the pieces of policy appeared to encourage that there not be a father in the home, right? So he's trying to make this social critique on the policies of LBJ and the impact of the Black community. And he decided to use Jim Crow as a jumping off point because he also wants to be vice president of the United States, and he's required to say stupid shit like that. So he's trying to serve two masters, and I use that word on purpose. And the reason why I wrote the column the way that I did was because listen, you asked. So the reason why I wrote the column the way that I did, because I don't call him any names, but what I do is remind people of the history of what Jim Crow was. And part of the reason why the Black family was together was because we was huddled and scared for our lives, right? They were burning down our towns. Remember, they were lynching us during Jim Crow. They had laws that told us where we could stand in public during Jim Crow. So, when you want to be vice president of the United States, you do have to appeal to the person who's going to be at the top of the ticket. But when you start downplaying Jim Crow to get that job, you need to be checked. And I'm glad he's been checked, by people, and that he's trying to walk things back. Good luck on your journey,
So
but
shady.
listen, man, like him and some of those other ones that like to downplay, the ones that like to talk about like the Democrat plantation. Don't play with the word plantation like that.
Right.
Don't play with plantation. You can talk about policy differences all day long. You can talk about what President Obama did or did not do all day long. But why are you playing with the word plantation? You play with that word plantation because it satisfies a particular ear. And when you're trying to satisfy that ear, you need to be checked. And so I'm always going to check as long as I'm able to write and think and speak and all those good things, because I feel that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is to keep pushing for that work, Don. That's why you're here, to keep pushing for that work and to check each other when, people start slipping. He was slipping.
You're right. Look, I could have ridden off in the sunset and it would have been nice. But still, I wanted to have a voice and I wanted to be able to, because I think people like us are really needed. And I don't know, I can't explain it. Probably cannot articulate it as well as you can. But that moment when Tim Scott was on the stage and he went up there and he said, "I just love
I
you."
just love you.
Man, I cringed for him. I wanted to shake him and say, what is wrong with you? Are you, I mean, how did it hit you?
It's the very same way. I remember the quote word for word, just like you did. You know, because it was one of those moments when you realize, oh, that one can't be saved.
Yeah.
You know, that one that one was gone. Some of them you throw a life raft and you can help them find themselves, the sense of integrity, and they get back on shore. And they go, oh, thank you for rescuing me. I lost myself. Like Chris Christie, for instance, he said that publicly. I was caught up in trying to get power and I lost myself. And that's the reason why he ran against President Trump the way that he did, because he was trying to get in touch with his own integrity. Well, sometimes you throw that little lifesaver out and they're too far out and you can't get them. And I just felt that was a moment where I looked and I just go, this lifesaver can't reach him. He gone. Because
why has nobody asked him? People are afraid to, because there's no shame in being gay or bi or whatever it is. Why has no one asked him? It was the reason he sort of rushed or outed his relationship or and got engaged is because there were these rumblings about him being gay, and that would not sit well with the Republican Party, and he would not be considered on President Trump's VP list. Why didn't someone just ask him? Because that was out there, and everybody was like, which journalist is going to ask him? Who's going to ask him? Because that's an issue when it comes to the Republican Party, and not just Republicans, a lot of people in this country. Did you do that for that reason, as it has been, said? People are saying the quiet part out loud, but not in the spaces where they should be hearing it. Why didn't anybody ask him?
I think that the media in general, well, I won't say the media in general, I would say, seasoned journalists, right? We're trying to assess a person's humanity with what's actual public, knowledge, or what public should know, and the questions that we should know. And when it comes to questions of gender identity and sexual orientation, historically speaking, we don't engage directly with that conversation. And a lot of that has to do with the stigma of yesteryear and how those questions could actually destroy a person's career. I think we're obviously seeing less and less of that today. You would think that these kind of conversations would be a lot more free flowing, but seasoned journalists would rather much be cautious, and I am one of those journalists, right? I would much rather be cautious in this space when it comes to talking about someone's sexual orientation and gender identity without being absolutely true, or me being completely knowledgeable about what it is, if there is hypocrisy afoot. So I don't begrudge anyone, Don, really, who has been on the trail, who didn't ask him directly about those rumors, because it's the caution, right, versus the what's really required for the public. But I think it is telling, if you will, that if you remember when Michelle Bachmann was rising in the ranks with the Tea Party, and rumors started circulating around her husband, Marcus Bachmann, she quickly disappeared in terms of the polls and fundraising and et cetera. And similarly, when Tim was ascending in the polls and started getting traction, and questions about his marital status started to circulate, and those rumors started to percolate, he too started to slip away and disappear. And so, that's not me throwing shade. That's me remembering the timeline. And that's something that the Republican Party, I don't know if they care to address as a party, but that's just the way that historically it's just always been. I don't get it, Don, but
for me, that's a reason to ask. And there's a very simple answer to the question to say, no, whoever Bob, the reporter or whatever, no,
but when you do,
a member of that, I'm not a member of the LGBTQ community. I did not.
But how do you say that, Don, without like flip it to the Harry Styles model, right? Harry Styles, you asked him if he's queer, and he's like, going, how dare you ask me this question? It doesn't matter. Blah, 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 blah. That's my fake
It
Harry
does matter.
Styles English accent. But you know what I'm saying, though? There's a lot of people who will use that conversation. Billie Eilish used that conversation at one point a year ago, where she's like, who cares that I'm queer? Who cares that I'm gay? And yeah, I'm with you. It does matter. But at the end of the day, if who cares is the goal, you have to allow space for who cares to be the answer.
Right.
Otherwise, who cares would never be the goal.
Yeah. Well, I think that I believe in asking the question, and just because
I know you do.
just because
Nosy
you don't
ass.
like the answer, you don't know the answer. I mean, of course, I think that's what you should do. I think you should be able to ask any question, and as long as you do it there's a way to ask any question, and just because you think that they're going to come up with some sort of answer to circumvent to whatever answering the question. I don't think that that's a reason not to ask.
Listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with citing data and polls and anecdotal stories based upon reporting to ask any question. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is that if you haven't done that work, but you're in a position to ask that question, why are you asking that question?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So if you've done the work and you've earned the place to ask that question because you're invested in the answer, then sure. But if you haven't done that work, but you're just doing it because it's salacious, then that's what I kind of bristle at. And so
no, it's not salacious. There's a reason that they're in the Democratic Party that there's a Pete Buttigieg, but running for president or vice president as in the Republican Party, there's not someone like that, and we know there's an issue within the party. And so
absolutely. I mean, it's in
Scott
writing.
Could bring a light to that as someone who may not be a member of the LGBTQ community and say just having those rumors out there was detrimental to me, and that should not even it shouldn't be.
Don, this man told you this was not a racist country, and it was never a racist country.
I forgot about that.
Why are you trying to get some kind of nuance out of him? Why are you trying to get a complex conversation out of someone who's trying to get from point A to point B because point B might get him the vice presidency?
All right. That's like saying that's the same thing when someone says, who was it that said that slavery, the Civil War was not about slavery? That was what Nikki. That was Nikki.
Yeah, that was Nikki. It was Nikki Haley.
Oh.
Nikki Haley saying it was like it was like ancillary on the side, like garnish. the literal engine to the economy of not just America, but like the transatlantic slave trade. Totally branded. It had its own branding. Transatlantic slave trade. Yeah. Gold Girls want you to think. Yeah.
Getting back to all of that, unless you're worried about what the response is going to be, meaning what was the Civil War is about, why this happened, this LGBTQ question about you. If you think there's some sort of negativity, there's something bad about what the answer might be, then that's the reason I think for asking it, because you have you're predisposed to think that there's negativity on the other side of that question. And
I get it.
You know what I'm saying? So anyways.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. But I don't think we can. I think when it comes to the issue of queer equality, they're pretty clear. Yeah. When it comes to issues of race, it's more cagey, obviously, but in the issues of LGBTQ plus equality, for some of these state Republican parties, it's literally written in the bylaws, and they sent money back, from queer people who are conservative to organizations, and they sent checks back. So, they're pretty clear about that one.
So then how do you feel about Black Republicans? I have no problem with Black Republicans. If you want to be a Republican,
listen,
that's fine. That's your business.
I don't really care about parties, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
It's just, again, it's branding.
What about log cabin Republicans? For those of you who don't know, that means gay Republicans, and their members are usually the log cabin Republican club, whatever that is.
See, to me, I'm sad for them. To be quite honest with you, I'll be honest with you. So when I first moved to New York, I wanted to get acclimated with many different groups as possible in the community. And so I actually did go to a log cabin excuse me, a lab cabin Republican
Log
Christmas
cabin
ball.
Republican.
Thank you. Whatever. I can't even remember.
Christmas
It's like
party.
Christmas party. Thank you. And there weren't a lot of black people. Three, three gentlemen handed me the empty glass, or tried to anyway. And then one gentleman who
Well, you mean
actually knew.
they had used their glass and they were trying to hand it to you
Oh,
too.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Okay, I get it,
oh, yeah, yeah, oh yeah. And then one friend who I actually knew, I should have called one buddy who I actually knew beforehand and had spent time around was there, comes up to me without hesitating and said, "What are you doing here?" Not even bullshitting, man. I am not even bullshitting you. That was my introduction to the log cabin Republicans in Manhattan, which is supposed to be the liberal city.
Oh my God.
So, so when I say I'm sad for them, I'm just sort of like, you know, I'm not sure, what sort of wealth it takes to kind of chill in a space where people literally are trying to like kill me, stop me from existing, erase me. I don't know
Erase
what
your
it's like to chill in that
marriage.
space. Erase your marriage, like
Yeah.
don't want you to have kids. Like I don't know what it's like to chill in that space. I don't know what that tier of wealth is, and I don't want to visit that tier of wealth because if that tier of wealth allows you to do that with your integrity, there's some other things that tier is asking of your integrity that I don't want to know about.
I've seen that tier of wealth, and I've seen the gays who run to Palm Beach to Mar-a-Lago, and it's just like, wow. Okay.
I listen,
There aren't enough private planes in the world for me to do that.
whatever folks listen. There are gays that eat Chick-fil-A, so I got my stuff about all kinds of things.
You still eat Chick-fil-A?
No, I don't.
Oh,
No,
okay. Oh, you said there are
but I'm
some
saying,
days. I thought you said some days.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
no. There are some gays who still eat Chick-fil-A despite all the information that we
I do
have.
slip up. I'm
So
sorry. But go. I'm sorry.
listen, I'm not in the business of policing people's behavior. I'm just telling you why my behavior is based on, the things that I do. And it's like, I would rather go hungry to eat a Chick-fil-A. I would rather not go to Mar-a-Lago for a tax cut. I just, because I'm not going to be respected, right? Because it's in the bylaws, like, and people are sending your checks back. So, like, you're not going, to be respected. You're going to be tolerated. And again, a lot of us are in spaces where we're tolerated. So I'm not trying to front on that either. But like, they're actively just trying to kill you too. So it's like, I don't know what the calculus is, but I'm assuming that happens on a tier that I'm unfamiliar with.
Okay, one more thing. Well, actually, two more things. Transgender women or men in sports. Where do you stand? What do you think of that? I don't know why people are so obsessed with it, but
oh, you know why people are obsessed with it. It's a hot button political issue, and I think that's where we should actually begin the conversation. We shouldn't begin the conversation with the actual data, because if we did that, we would go, why are we obsessing over less than 50 trans athletes out of 30,000? So we're not going to do it off the math or off of the data. We're going to do it off, the climate and the culture's temperature. And LGBTQ plus equality, particularly trans care, transgender people in general, it's a really good mover for Republicans. And they're going to try to enter into that conversation to engage with their base at every entry point possible. We saw it with the Los Angeles Dodgers. We saw it with beer. We saw it with Target. We saw it with, they're just going to try to engage to just provoke their base. And so I see this as more of the same, that this conversation is really not starting from what's actually in the best interest of student athletes, as much as, what's in the best interest of elected officials who are hoping to gain favor or get reelected. So that to me is where it starts. Now, when it comes to the actual games themselves and the fairness of the games themselves, I know that the Olympic Committee has been talking about an open category where competitors of all genders can compete. I am intrigued by that conversation. I know that marathons do that, and we have other athletic events that do that. So that could be something I think worth exploring, because I do think that when you're talking about transgender female athletes, and depending upon when the athlete transitioned in terms of their hormone therapy, there can be some physiological differences that were benefited by testosterone. And I don't think that it's unhealthy to have that kind of conversation if it's coming from a place of inclusion. And that's where I'm coming from. It's acknowledging differences from a place of inclusion so we can find a solution that we include. What I oppose are people who start that conversation from a place of exclusion because they want to point out those differences as reasons to keep people out. So I think when it comes to trans athletes and gender in general, you start with the political because that's where it's originated from. It didn't originate from, this threshold of athletes that we've seen on our televisions, right? But from the comments and the laws being passed. And then it moves to what's fair. And fair is about inclusion, not exclusion. And so I'm for anything, whether it's the science saying perhaps we need more treatment for a longer period of time, whether it's creation of an open category that's completely fair and everyone has equality in terms of access to facilities and being able to be on air and celebrate like everyone else. If that's the solution, I support that. But what I don't support are bans. I don't think there's a single ban in sports, Don, that's worked out in terms of when we look back in history. When we banned women from running in the Boston Marathon, that was just stupid. When we banned, athletes from being, of color, being in, NCAA tournament, that's stupid. And we recognize that now. So I don't want us to be 50 years from now looking back going, now, why did we do that when we had all these examples? No, I'd much rather be on the right side of history and say, listen, we've done this multiple times before. We've figured it out in the past. Let's figure it out now as opposed to saying we're going to kick or ban people because we know that doesn't work.
Yeah, you could not have articulated that better, at least for how I feel about it, because I feel the same way. I do think that there may be some sort of, I don't know if it's an inherent advantage because of the physiology, right? But that doesn't mean that you should discriminate against people. I think we need to research it, we need to talk about it, and perhaps there should be a category that's other than the male-female category. So I agree with you. Thank you
Absolutely.
for saying that.
And Don, if I could just add in one more thing about this conversation.
Yeah.
When you grow up a male in this country, we are indoctrinated with a belief system about our athleticism that isn't always present for female athletes when they grow up. And so beyond just the physiological conversation, with this, there's also to me, the sports psychology aspect of it. Whereas you don't have to tell boys, run faster, you could do it, blah, 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 because you see boys, right? But in society, women are conditioned to think of femininity in a different sort of way. And that too is something that is a obstacle that when it comes to female athletes in particular, that I don't think men appreciate, just how much willpower and strength and courage it takes to look at the world that says you should be playing with dolls and being pretty and decides, no, I'm going to be ugly and try to win this championship. That's you know what I'm saying? Like
I do.
and I don't think there's a real appreciation of that. So when it comes to just talking about sports in general, I look at the world that way. And when I talk about what's considered fair in this conversation of trans athletes, I also consider that, for a lot of young female athletes, just being out in the field and trying is a huge accomplishment because women aren't encouraged to try like that. Whereas for young men, that isn't the same. And I don't think that goes away.
Okay, so I get a lot of shit for being in an interracial relationship. How do you feel about it? Can we have that conversation? I get so sick of it. And I get sick of it from my own people too. And I feel like you guys should know better. You've been discriminated against. Can I just love who I love? I understand it kind of, but go on. Sorry.
I don't even pay attention to it anymore. And you know why? Because I'm married to John B. Like he's like one of those. Like we were watching Bad Boys, the other day.
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying like he's trying or it is performative, but that I think people who give interracial couples shit, are people who are taking their own bullshit and heaping it onto things they don't understand. And those of us who are in interracial relationships and we're comfortable, we can fully be ourselves in these relationships, and it's not being performative and it's not being transactional, but it's actually genuine love. It's just like I I used to worry about that. I did. I did. I used to worry about that, and then I don't know, man. Like I don't know. We were playing spades, and I was just like, I'm just playing spades with my husband. Why do I care? I'm just
We taught Tim
you
how
know.
to play spades at a family Thanksgiving one. It was amazing. And he was good. He was so nervous because it's serious. The spades is serious at the black family
It's
card
serious. It's serious.
table.
It's serious. Yeah, yeah. I had to actually pull back. You know,
You're
the
shit
rest of his
talking.
family, I'd go on mute. Like it was, people were getting red and shit, and I was like, I cannot bring this everywhere. But I forgot, because I was so comfortable doing it with Steve that I couldn't do it with his whole family just right out the gate. So, it was a situation, but we resolved it, we got past it.
Yeah.
So,
I was just wondering. I mean,
but,
we're similar in similar positions. The reason it's just I stopped caring about it, but then I recently got married, and I saw the comments started coming back, and a lot of the comments
you,
that I saw were from my own people, and I'm like, this is just
yeah, I saw some of those comments about you getting married, to Tim. And I was just like, you know what? First of all, and this is like the honest to God truth. Just because he didn't marry you doesn't mean he doesn't like black people. And that's just the way I feel about my own space. It's like just because I didn't marry a black person doesn't mean I don't love black people, or that I haven't loved black men, or that I don't continue to want to see black men thrive in happy marriages. It just means that I fell in love with the white dude. I mean,
that's
that's
it.
just. I understand. I understand all the political dynamics of it. I understand all of it. Trust me, the intersectionality of it. I study it. I've all of it, and I have peace with it because I know I'm not less black.
Yeah.
And I think if I were, if I felt like I was hiding myself in some capacity, like I couldn't, play my music or I couldn't cook my food, if I was trying to fit in, then yeah. But I don't fit in. We fit together,
Right.
and that's just different.
Yeah. Look, my family calls Tim. They call him Uncle Tim and his friend Don. That's what my niece is. So
see,
everybody loves Tim,
see,
right? And my family
well,
loves Tim to death. But this is the thing. But also on the other side, I remember when I was covering, they were talking about the Muslim ban, and they were saying, "Oh, terrorists are going to enter the country." And I said, the biggest terror threat in the United States is coming from domestic terror. That's what the FBI director has said. And
hmm
who's that? Who's doing that? That is white men radicalized to the right. So now I cannot like white people or white men because I stated a fact about the biggest terror threat of the country. And
Don,
who is that? I'm just saying,
do not
it makes
do,
absolutely no sense.
do not obsess
I'm
trying
not.
to have
I'm
nuanced
asking you because I know
conversations
that
with
you can
people.
relate.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah, 1,000%. But you know what? I just don't think about people when I'm trying to have nuanced conversations who are obviously out of their depth. I wish them well. And let it be. For people who can play in this pool, they hang out, and those who can't, go with yourself. I mean, that's just really how and I'm not trying to be arrogant about it, but it's just like there always will be people like that. There have always been people like that. You know, there were members of the founding fathers who were like that. We romanticize that era as if everyone who was from that period, was from the best of stock. And that, and it's just sort of like, well, I guess if that's what you need in order to make the rest of the story work for you, then sure. But for those of us who have some sort of clarity, we know that, there were some flaws, to say the least. So it's just sort of like, at some point, you just have to like know that there always have been people like those who come at you with that sort of response, and that you can't let those people take your joy or sap your energy or even really dip into your time. I mean, we're in our 50s. I really don't want to spend that much time talking to people like that. Like it doesn't benefit.
The reason I'm asking you this is because we just had this, the 67th anniversary of Loving versus Virginia was last week, and I did a post on it. And then, of course, this is Pride Month, and we're just talking about all those issues that, we sort of have, we sort of are alike on, but we may have different takes on a lot of it. LZ, you're the best. I would ask you about DEI and all that, but we've been talking forever. And I know you guys.
I think you got that covered from the first episode of your show. I don't really think we need to revisit that, do we?
If you have some words, I mean, go. That'll be our last thing. I mean, what do you think?
My word is, don't let the chip get in your brain. Not with him at the wheel. Not if he's controlling the wheel. Don't let that chip in your brain, man. I'm just you ain't gonna Neuralink me. Oh man!
And on that note,
who's in control of the hell? That one? And he don't like what? DEI? And you want to do what? Put a chip? No.
He's already controlling the satellites.
Listen, that's some Dr. No, James Bond shit right there. That's all I'm going to say.
LZ, I love you, man.
Love you too, Don. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for appearing. And I can imagine as soon as we hang up, we're going to be like, why you ask me that question? Are you trying to get
No. I'm a grown-ass man. I do what I was doing when I came on.
I need to see you in person, okay? So I love you.
Are you in New York for Pride?
I am. I leave. We're talking like we're on the phone. I leave for Italy soon.
I know. That's right. Oh,
yeah.
That's right.
And then I'll be back. Though.
All right, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Okay. Love you. Say hi to Steve. Give my love.
Love you too. Okay.
Bye.
Say hi to Tim. Okay.
I will. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show. Make sure you click on the image in the top right to subscribe to my channel and the thumbnail in the bottom right to watch more content from my show. And I'll see you next time.